Hello, 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 and welcome back to another great, I hope is going to be a great episode. I don't think we've had an episode that's not been great. Has any not been great? I don't.
No, I've given thumbs up to all of them on Apple Podcasts, so might be a bit
Yeah,
biased. But yeah.
yeah. I guess there's different degrees of great too, though. Like there's great, and then there's really great, and then there's just like blow your mind, knock your socks off. Have we had one of those yet? Like people are just like slow clap after the episode's done? I don't
No, I
know.
think I have a feeling that's today. We were kind of
Oh, that's
ramping up.
today. Yeah,
Now
yeah,
we've got the viewership, uh,
yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. Like
So
at the end, they'll be clapping, cheering, maybe a small tear, like
I,
coming down your eye.
I think we're gonna
You're
hit the
listening.
top of, or we're gonna move up in the charts with this one because we're using some pretty popular buzz terms or buzzwords.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I know. Yeah,
So you put
I
these
know.
two letters together on anything, you'll either get money thrown at you or people will listen. So
I know.
hopefully
Yeah,
we get the latter at least.
everyone's doing the like, every new startup is like .ai now, right?
Oh, in
Um,
the domain?
yeah, the domain, right? It's like whatever .ai because everyone's trying to be an AI startup. But I think that's like an actual, like it's not obviously supposed to be artificial intelligence. I think it's a country that has that .ai domain.
Oh,
Uh,
seriously?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Anguilla, an overseas territory in the
Oh
Caribbean, has
no.
that. No, but I think they're like making a ton of money because you have to like when you register your domain, I think you give.
GoDaddy pays the country
Yeah,
something or whatever.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That's probably true. Okay, yeah,
and,
they're loving it.
and so
I've never
Anguilla.
even heard of that
uh,
place. Probably a
Yeah,
tax haven or some weird thing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Here we go. I'm on Wikipedia.
okay.
Yeah, just to wrap it up. The registration fees earned by the .a domain go to the treasury of the government of Anguilla. As per the New York Times in 2018, the total revenue generated out of selling was $3 million, and that's just gone up. I
Jesus.
mean,
Wow.
and that was 2018 before everyone went crazy over AI. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
as you were about to say,
Their number
well,
one
yeah,
import is domains now, or whatever you
I
would
know
call that.
our economy is half domains.
We're talking about AI today, but more
Yeah,
specifically, the difference between automation and AI. So
yeah, yeah. I
the
mean, AI, like
confusing
you said,
different. Yeah, for most.
it's a massive budget, or there's 1,001 ways you can go with this. But I think for this podcast, because this is pretty particularly relevant for us, because we've been in the automation business, if you will, for years, and now people are coming in and they're kind of mixing those two terms up. I don't know if you get that, but like I'm getting people coming into conversations that I'm having with them, and they're saying, "Hey, I'd love to AI to send an email 6 months before the maturity date." Right? Let's use that as an example. It's like that's not AI. Well, it can be AI, and we're going to talk about that today. But like that's been around for 10 years, and we just called that automation. And now AI is top of mind for everyone, and so people are using it that way, right? I don't know if you're getting the same, but that's
Totally.
really kind of my inspiration for this is that hey, everything's AI, everything is,
Yeah.
and
Like
everyone's trying to
anything
put
that
in the
does
bubble.
something
Yeah,
without you sitting there and doing it, like sending an email or a text or adding some numbers or whatever. And we'll talk about the difference. Like people are coining that AI now. And
yeah,
it's really interesting. I'm not exactly sure why. It's probably just lack of education on it. But that's why we're here today to help you understand the difference. And yeah, let's do it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and the education part of it's good too, but I think the other important thing with all this, why we even want to talk about this and draw this distinction is, you want to you want to be precise with these types of things. I mean, as it relates to things that could make a pretty big impact to your business, you don't want to be confusing these terms, especially, I'd say if you ever work with, a third party contractor who might be helping you with some of these things, even within your team, but even for yourself, right? If you're going out there and Googling, hey, I want to do this, you got to make sure you're using the right terms because it's such a blue ocean out there, and one slip up can send you down a rabbit hole that you never intended to go down, right? So I think it is important as these things become, more relevant and more used to still kind of maintain that precision of what means what, right? So I guess diving into that then, what means what, before we get into what's the difference and kind of what it means for your business. Maybe at a high level, we can just define teach them, right? So, I mean, you've been the automation guy. I think you're the longest automation guy I know. I know there's a lot of guys maybe doing it longer than you, but you were doing it back in the basement in our house in Kingston there. And so
Yeah.
why don't you take away the automation and I'll chime in on the AI side of things. But so someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to build some automation." What does that mean to you?
Well, first off, let me just correct you. I was actually in the
Uh-oh.
loft in that year. I
Yeah,
was
oh
upstairs. Yeah.
no. And then I took
So,
over your room.
yeah, you
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
we shared
yeah.
rooms in different years. But anyways, okay, so what is the basis of automation? And yeah, I've been doing it for a while. I mean, the way I think of it, and I maybe this is a buzz term, but a lot of people say that it's like if then scenarios. So there's all kinds of
Mm,
tools out
yeah.
there. There's one called IFTT, if then that. There's
Oh
one
yeah.
called Zapier, and those are kind of mass market tools. But basically, it's coding light, or it's just coding with a front end. Oftentimes with these automations, where it's like, I have this scenario, and if that scenario is true, I want this to happen. Like that is not intelligence or artificial
Hmm.
intelligence, and you'll talk more about that. It's literally programming or automation. And so that's probably the easiest way to think of it. So think of many things like, for example, when, I don't know, an email goes out to your client, as if you're a mortgage broker, if you have a CRM or something like that, it's like, okay, a mortgage closes and I want an email to go out. That's automation. You're saying if the mortgage is closed and the
If
closing date
this,
is
then that.
today,
Okay. Yeah.
then send out the automation. And it exists in all industries. Like when you pay with your credit card, it's literally looking, do you have money on your card? If so, then
If
bill him,
this,
right?
then
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so it's
Yeah. Yeah.
everywhere. And so automation has been around, probably even, well, definitely before the internet. I think it was in the manufacturing world and
Hmm.
all of that
Hmm.
stuff. But yeah, that's probably the best way to think of it, at least in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. When you talk about it, it's kind of without going too far down this rabbit hole, it's kind of like an interesting thing to think about. Um, the if this and that. That's been the foundation of like the internet in a sense for like a long time. It's like zeros and ones, right? People kind of just throw around, oh, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones. What does that mean? Well, zeros and ones is really like zero is no, one is yes, right? And they
Yeah.
just have a bunch of things within that, right? It says if one, right? So if yes, if maturity date equals this, right? So you have a logical condition and you get a yes, so you get a one, then do this, right? And all of, I mean, not all of, but a lot of what we've done, as a human race as it relates to the coding and programming that we have and the basis of our internet and all those things that you're talking about is all a lot of automation, right? So that's the foundation. And then I think as it relates to mortgage brokers that we work with, it's these tools like CRM, like Zapier, like I actually what was the one you said? IFTT? I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's
Is it
more of
popular?
a yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
more of a
Okay. I'm
personal
living
app.
under
Businesses don't use it.
okay,
But
I'm living
like,
under a rock. Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, I've used it like, you know me, stupid things. Like I had this one thing that I did where this was years ago, but basically I have Philips Hue lights at home, and then I had a
Oh.
GPS tracker in my phone. And so when I
Okay.
hit a certain kilometer distance from home, it would turn on the lights a certain color. You do an if then that, if this then that, and then Catherine, my fiance, would then know I'm almost home. So it was like a stupid little thing, but you can like automate your lights turning
Yeah.
on or your TV
Okay.
turning on. So it's more consumer facing. Yeah.
More consumer. Or yeah, Zapier's more that. And yeah, but so all these tools really though are taking all those zeros and ones, and there's probably a million and one layers between it, but it's putting it in a at a level that makes sense to humans, right? It's to say, yeah, okay, instead of typing in a bunch of zeros and ones, which would never make sense, it's literally these tools are pretty good. They're kind of drag and drop where you just, you have a set of actions, maybe in your example related to a Philips Hue light. You can click and drag and say change color, and then you can click and drag another one that says when I get within this radius, right? And it just kind of links those two things together. So it's really kind of just many, many layers above those zeros and ones. But at the end of the day, that's all it is, right? It's just yes, no, is this happening? Is that happening? And obviously for us, we deal a lot with it and on the CRM side of things, and CRMs are really good at that too, right? Like CRMs have all sorts of if this and that, like it's kind of throughout the whole system, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And they're typically, like you said, they've built, because a lot of them are fairly mature now. They've built nice interfaces where you don't have to be a developer to do this stuff. Like I'm not
Right.
from a development background. So yeah, basically these if then that, like it started with code and zeros and ones, but now they have, like you said, drag and drop interfaces. And if you just know logic, you can set it up and then you're good to go. But that's very
Yep.
different than AI, which you're going to explain now.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I'll get into it. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and so getting to this now, the moment we've all been waiting for, what the buzzword of, I was going to say the year, but maybe it's going to be the buzzword of the decade, and I think for good reason. Um, AI, right? I mean, it's what everyone's talking about, and for me, I've always been a little bit of a skeptic as it relates to these types of things. Okay, yeah, it's some cool stuff, but what's the practical application? But I think we're getting there in terms of
yeah,
practical application. I think, obviously when ChatGPT came around, everyone really kind of perked up their ears and said, "Whoa, right? This is cool, right? What's going on here?" And yeah, I think it is interesting. I don't think we're quite there yet, where I'm not actually seeing the mass adoption. I don't know. I don't think you are either, especially among brokers. And I think for good reason. I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting there, right? We're seeing the right progress in the right direction, which is great. And so, yeah, for this, yeah, what a lot of there's a lot of categories there. We're going to talk about. I think for this podcast, generative AI, which I think is what most people think of right now, at least. And it's kind of the secret's in the name, right? Generative AI, well, generate something, right? So it's generative, it generates something. So that is, ChatGPT, it generates a block of text. There's things, I think it's Dolly, is it, that's in the ChatGPT?
yeah,
There's other ones. What was the Mid Journey is the other picture one, right? Where you say, hey, make me this image, and it goes and makes it. And that's been around longer actually than people think. And the example I always give when people go, oh yeah, you're right, is the Gmail autocomplete. I don't know. Do you use Gmail? I know we use Zoho Mail
yeah, I
on the
do.
business. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they've had that for like years now, right? Where it's
yeah,
like, hey, I'm typing a sentence and it almost like guesses it, right? So it's generating, again, that word generating the rest of that. And so that's what we'll talk about today. And so those are the examples, and it's been around a bit. But I think the big difference, I mean, we kind of really hammered home on the automation side, these zeros and ones, these yes and nos, if this and that. AI is less so about that. It's much more, I guess, probabilistic, right? To use another big word, which is it's all probabilities, right? It says, okay, what is the probability that, in this sentence, A is the next letter, or X is the next letter, or that, C comes after A, right? It's very common C comes after A. Maybe not so common for Z to come after Y, right? Not a lot of words have that. And so it takes all these things and um, takes all the probabilities and spits out an output that is very likely, right? So you're saying, again, with maybe the Gmail example, it's saying, okay, what is the probability that the sentence is going to end this way? And those things are getting better and better. But the really cool thing about it, I think, is that it's not deterministic. That's another, I'm using a lot of these big words these days, but it's not going to be if this then that. And I think a pretty cool example you can do, I don't know if you've done this. I've done this maybe once or twice, but if you type in the same thing into ChatGPT twice, just say, hey, write me a blog about, why mortgage rates might stay higher for longer than we think. I don't know, something like that. If you do that two, three, four times in a row, you could get two, three, four different answers, right? Have you done that? Have you tried that? Like I said, I've only tried like once or twice, but it's true, right? It's all probability, and probabilities. You can kind of, misfire or hit on the other side. You're flipping a coin basically, and well, first
yeah.
time you get heads, second time you get tails.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't done it
yeah,
myself, but I've heard people, and they usually talk about it to the negative in many ways. Where, I mean, it is a
right,
neat feature, but they call it like hallucination that these
right,
platforms can do, where
yeah, yeah,
they, based on the probability or whatever the data is that goes into their model, they're maybe saying things that aren't exactly true, or they're making things up. So, I mean, there are some, but it is a really, I mean, I personally use ChatGPT a lot. I've used it all the way to help my brother play Scrabble. You can take a photo of the
Ah,
Scrabble board
no,
and it'll
you can
tell
do
you all.
that. Oh
Yeah.
no,
So like
yeah,
that's the whole like you could just see in that example, like no if
yeah,
then that could do that. Because it's looking at a
right,
photo, it's ingesting it, it's looking at the tiles and all that. But
right.
anyways, continue your point, I
Well, no, I
guess.
think
But
I think it's like, and so for that reason, it's not so it's it's maybe not good for like an if this and that. And like, using Chat GPT would never be able to say, hey, 6 months before, send an email, at least if you want some sort of consistent business process that you have in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
AI is actually not going to be that tool for you, right?
Yeah.
It's because, it might hallucinate, like you said. It might send one email that's great one day and then one email that's terrible the next day because it's just flipping a coin, right? That's what ChatGPT is doing. And, you could have a weighted coin, let's say, that hits heads 9 times, but tails the 10th time, and maybe that 10th email, that 10th tail, something that you don't want, right? And so, really, the important distinction, really, what I think we wanted to drive home in this podcast, those are the two big differences. And so, you know, I given you an example to say, okay, well, if you want a very consistent business process, automation is the way to go. I guess when does it make sense then to use these generative AI tools? Like, have you seen some time or maybe some broker who's actually using them and using it well and providing good value? Like, when would you say is the right time to use, chat GPT in your business?
Yeah, I mean, there are some use cases I see brokers using it more for now. One of them that comes to mind, it's like almost like problem solving in a sense for you, where
Mm,
you can
yeah,
actually almost put some variables in there, like I have a rate of X, I have a client of Y, and I don't want to put them in this or that. What would you like crunch these numbers? Maybe that's not a great example,
cool.
but I've
Yeah, yeah,
personally done it like with Excel, where it's like I don't know the formula to do this, so I just ask ChatGPT and it either builds the formula or I give it the data and it reconfigures it for me. So that type of stuff you can never do with automation, and so that is something where it's almost like, for lack of a better word, maybe
like
not a
a
second brain, but like a
brainstorming partner almost,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like, I often go in there and just have convos with it, like,
Yeah,
I have it on my
crazy.
phone, and you
Yeah,
can just,
yeah,
like, push it too and be like, "Okay, so I think this politically," and it goes, "Well, have you thought of that?" And it's like, "Well, give me 3 reasons why I should change my mind," and it does, and then it
yeah,
it's pretty cool in that sense, and automation could never do that. I
right.
don't know how that
Yeah.
directly applies to a broker, that little scenario,
Well,
but
I've heard, no, I think it is. I mean, this is the one I've heard of a couple times, or I know one guy who's done this, which is like objection handling, where he goes into Chat
mm,
GPT and it's like, I'm a borrower, and they almost like recreate their clients. I'm a borrower. I'm skeptical that rates are going to go down. I'm not sure if I should go with a broker or the bank. Tell me why I should go with a broker. And it goes out, right? And it gives you all these reasons. And then it says, hey, I don't think that reason a good enough reason to go with a broker. Can you be more specific or can you give me more, right? And you can have these conversations. You can recreate these. You can brainstorm together. And then coming out of that, at the very least, you have a great idea or a lot more ideas of how you can interact with your client. And at most, you have probably a great email template, right? To fit into your
yeah.
process. Say, hey, if you ever have this objection, here's like a dialed in, ready to go template that you can use, right? And so that's what I've seen and that's what I've heard, which is just so cool, really, if you think about
Can
it.
also write content for you. A lot of people are doing that. But like you
That's true.
said,
Yeah,
you still gotta vet it, in my opinion. I think you probably agree because it might be hallucinating. It might not give the vibe you want, but it's getting to the point, at least ChatGPT now, where you can actually load up syntaxes and ideas that you believe in, and it'll actually write with those in mind or write with those
right.
verbs or nouns or however you speak. And so that's pretty neat, but, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely the conversational aspect of it is just bananas. It's so, so good. Yeah.
it's really cool. And what I'm excited for, this hasn't existed, or really, I think in a really practical way, come to fruition yet, which is when they can combine it, right? To say, and maybe it, me, I think you know more than I do, but I think it'd be really cool to the point where it says, okay, um, maybe you start that conversation, you do that conversation, and then as a result of that conversation, you have, three automations you want to set up, right? So it's like, okay, we've had this great conversation. I have this great template of how I can handle this objection. Now, can you create an automation for me in Zapier or in my CRM or wherever that actually just gets this on autopilot, right? I mean, that's just a simple example, but that's what gets me excited because my brain is more if this than that. I think you know, I think you know that about me. And
Yeah,
so maybe that's part of the reason why I've been skeptical about these tools. But I think when they bring those two together to say, yes, you can
yeah.
have these really cool conversations, but also you can build it right into a business process. Oh, that's going to be. That's gonna be crazy,
Yeah.
I think.
They're definitely not there yet, at least from what I've seen. But a lot of
Yeah.
CRMs are trying and tools are trying to build it into their tool so that you can either tell it to write automations for you or tell it to write code or tell it to improve your grammar. So the worlds are kind of colliding or starting to, the if then that, this
Mhm.
then that, and automation, AI, and it's just moving so fast and getting so much better. And now, just I don't know, a couple weeks ago, we have a mutual buddy that works at Google, and I had a call with him, and like the stuff they're doing there, they're really pushing, and they've got the biggest data sets in the world.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
something important, I guess, maybe not to dive too deep into it, but these models are trained by a lot of data. It's like a human
Mhm.
brain. We got to go to school for 20 years. These models can do it faster, but Google's got YouTube and Google Docs and Gmail and our phones and our Google Home and Google Chromecast, and like they've got so much data. So like their AI is going to know
Well,
like you freaking
YouTube,
want to
right? I mean, oh,
launch.
man, YouTube's
Yeah.
gonna be we listen to a common podcast called
Yeah.
All
They were
In,
talking about
and,
that.
they were just
Yeah.
like, "YouTube's crazy." Like, it's
It was in
video,
the
it's audio.
petabytes, which I didn't even know existed. I don't
Yeah.
know
Is
how
that
big
above
that is.
terabyte?
I
Or is
guess
it no,
so.
it's yeah, it's gigabyte, terabyte, and then there's a peta, I guess it must be, right?
Yeah.
But
And it was like petabytes a day
yeah,
of data they're
yeah,
creating, of people uploading, because now people are just doing the YouTube shorts on their phone and just booting them up
yeah,
there. So anyways,
yeah. It's important to know those distinctions, right? And I think that's for any broker, and I'd say it like this is how I'm when I have conversations, just to kind of think about when someone's saying, "Hey, okay, I get the difference now. What should I focus on?" I say today, like where are we, Feb 2024. So if you're listening to this in 2035 and now robots are doing our laundry or whatever, then maybe not. But today, today in 2024, um, I think automation still kind of takes the cake in terms of real life examples, people using it, really making an impact in their business. So I say, hey, if you're really looking to something that's going to make an impact today, automation is the way to go. But keep your finger on the pulse, right? With these, yeah, because it's moving and it's moving really quickly, like you were just saying. Like the new things they come out with almost every month, it seems. It's like whoa, right? This is a fast moving curve, and I don't know honestly what the application is going to be of these more probabilistic type models. Um, but one's going to hit and it's going to make a big change, and I don't know what that is. So that's why I say, hey, keep your finger on the pulse, know what is at least going on. Doesn't mean you have to implement it across the board, every part of your business, because I think it actually might be tricky today. Um, but stay educated, I guess, is the best way to put it, right? Keep those top of mind, right? These things that are going on in the AI world.
definitely. Totally agree. Yeah. No one knows when it'll hit, like you said. But for the average mortgage broker, just not to confuse everyone or whoever's listening to this in the financial services world, there's probably so much more automation you can do in your business. We see it every day. Like, don't
Yeah,
get caught up with this AI stuff, but it's really cool and it is going to make an impact. And it might be, I don't know, people say like humans next frontier and all that stuff. Like it's a big deal. Now we're even
yeah.
putting this stuff in our heads. Literally, Elon is, anyways, putting chips in
Oh
people's
yeah.
brains.
Didn't he?
He had the
Didn't he?
first human one recently.
Right, right.
Yeah. His
Has
argument
anything?
is AI is going to get out of control, and so humans need to level up.
We need to keep up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Geez.
And
Okay.
I mean, talking about it now, it kind of makes sense, but I don't know if I want a chip in my head.
No, man. You know
But
me. I'm gonna be the guy. Barrel of oil, couple gold bars up in the tundra, away from all this stuff.
yeah, no, I'm
You're gonna
definitely interested
you're gonna
in
be
the.
deep in the metaverse. That's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be
definitely interested in that stuff, the metaverse,
yeah.
but then I can take the headset off. I don't know if I like the chip being implanted in my skull, but yeah, I mean, it's apparently gonna help cure blindness. It's gonna help people that are paralyzed. Like, it can rewire your body, and so if that stuff is true, then it's hard to argue that it's a bad idea until it gets hacked. But
Yeah,
anyways, we won't go there.
yeah. And if you think about it, without going there too, how different is a chip from your phone? I would say too, your phone. Phone's always with
Yeah,
you. Someone hacked that, you would be in deep trouble. You can throw your phone, I guess, away from you, but
yeah, it's true.
it's we're closer than you think. We're
I
closer
think
than you
Elon
think.
said
Yeah.
something like that one time where he's just, because his argument was similar, and he was just like, it might as well be strapped to your hand. Look at
Yeah,
every public transport you're on or whatever. Like it almost is a body part now. So why not
it's
just
like,
make it one?
yeah.
So
One thing that scared me, I heard one guy say is like, since you got your phone, have you ever been more than 6 feet from it? And some people, the answer is no. It's like, it's on my pocket. It's next to me on my bed. I take it to me when I go to the washroom. Like, when is
it's
it not?
quite rare that it's ever that far from me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Maybe.
So we
Yeah.
went down a little rabbit hole there, but maybe that's where maybe that's where we'll leave it to say, hey, these tech changes are coming, and you can resist it, as much as you can, but the tidal wave is coming, and I think in the sense of getting smart with it, if you're worried about the dangers of it, the best way you know, to prevent it or to deal with it is to stay educated, right? So maybe that comes full circle. So in any case, we'll leave it at there. If people are crying or clapping right now, we did our job. And please leave any comments in the video description or in the podcast description. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys.